And now, a thought from Mann. Honestly, the new Netflix series Big Mouth, it's more or less a surprise. Not a very pleasant surprise, but still it was something I wasn't really expecting. It was something I thought, okay, this is just going to be a very terrible show and it's definitely going to hurt me in some way, but I really don't feel that strongly about it. It's got some type of charm to it, but it's just kind of a bit misguided in its attempts about what it wants to do. That's just kind of the funny thing about it.
Oh, come on!
The main premise is about these kids who have to face the challenge of puberty. Now, something like that does seem like a very interesting concept. The idea of preteens having to go through the challenge of puberty, that's something you could actually do something with because so many people can relate to that. Just about everyone can relate to that, honestly. It just kind of writes itself, honestly, but the big problem is they have a lot of stupid in it. It relies on a lot of crude humor, and a lot of the time you're just like, yeah, that was kind of stupid. That was just unnecessary. I don't know why you did that. Like, that's just kind of a major break of this. It just kind of hurts it because it's like you get so close to something very charming and something everybody can easily put themselves into, but at the same time you easily make it jarring when you do something very gross and stupid. It's just very weird how it goes about this.
Fuck!
The main characters themselves, they can be a bit endearing. You can kind of find yourself getting into whatever problems they're having and kind of following along with it, but it's just sometimes they get a little too stupid with it. The main character, Nick, he's basically that curious kid everybody was that was going through puberty. Like, you easily understand a lot of the questions and a lot of the stuff he might have and a lot of his confusion. And the same can be said for his friend Andrew, who questions a lot of things about himself. He doesn't really understand this whole process and he's trying to figure out everything about it. And sometimes it even leads him to wondering, is he straight or is he gay? And a lot of people can relate to that. Everybody's gone through something like that. And then there's also the friend Jessie, who's going through the other types of problems with puberty in terms of being a girl. So you really do find yourself getting into these characters and their problems. It's just a lot of the time, whenever they're getting into their problems, it feels a little misguided. Like, there's this one instance where Nick ends up accidentally seeing his best friend's penis, and I'll tell you now, I don't know why they bothered showing that. For some reason, they thought, hey, let's show some preteen peen. I'm like, oh, God. And I'm not going to show that because I want to keep this channel. But either way, it leads him to have this weird fantasy about dicks playing basketball. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't see where you're going with that. That's just weird. That's all kinds of weird. I didn't get why they did it, but they decided to do it because, hey, it'd be funny, adult humor, you know? I'm like, I get it, it's an adult show, but that's kind of stupid. Let's face it, that's just something you really could have just not put in here. It just kind of takes away from the show rather than adds to the show. That's my big gripe with this show. You really get into the characters and their problems, but when they decide to do that out there humor, you're just like, oh, like you were so close. Oh, that's just sort of my problem with it.
Oh my God, I'm losing my mind. Big dick! Penises playing basketball. Big dicks shooting hoops. Passing, dribbling, bouncing, jiggling. Big dicks on the loose. What? No, get away! Stop it!
What the hell, man?
The show is developed by Nick Kroll and some of his friends, and it has a big celebrity cast list for it. And oftentimes they do a good job, but like I said, sometimes they get a little out there when they decide to do this crazy, weird humor. They tend to go weird places with a lot of the stuff. Some of the stuff can actually work. Like, they have this one idea of hormones in a sort of allegorical sense. Like, Andrew has this thing called the hormone monster, who is basically his hormones, and he kind of plays the part pretty well. And just as well, their friend Jessie has another one that's also like the hormone monstrous, and she's basically female hormones, and they do the parts very well. One better than the other, honestly, particularly the monstrous, who's played by Maya Rudolph, who's just, let's face it, she's a godsend. She's just fabulous, honestly. And she does a better job than Nick Kroll as the hormone monster. mainly because she loves this part. She just gives her all into this part. Nick Kroll does a really good job too. He plays it more like a sex fiend. He plays the hormones like someone who just really wants sex all the time and is thinking sex, sex, sex 24/7. And he plays it a bit creepily. And he can be pretty funny a lot of the time too. It's just Maya Rudolph, she plays it more like the feelings, like what a female would be going through or thinking as they're going through this major change. And she plays it up very well by having these crazy mood swings happening a lot of the time. And it's honestly very funny how she goes about it. This whole concept is a very weird one, but it's honestly a really good idea. It's just, they tend to be a bit inconsistent. Like, for the hormone monster, sometimes he's more or less imaginary, but then they decide, no, he can interact with the real world, and it's like, if he's an imaginary creature, he shouldn't be able to interact with the world. He should just be imaginary, you know? But they decide, no, sometimes he'll be seen, sometimes he's not. Like, which is it? Is he imaginary or is he a real thing? Like, what's going on here? Like, that's pretty inconsistent. It does have really good moments when it's wanting to talk about real problems that a lot of preteens would go through. It's just kind of awkward how they go about it. The main idea is, clearly it's based around like Nick Kroll and maybe his friends' lives when they were going through puberty. And you kind of can see it, but they get out there a lot of the time. So you tend to kind of realize this is kind of a stupid show. But at the same time, you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. That's just kind of the conundrum here.
What the fuck is this?
The humor of the show, it varies so much. Like, some of the stuff can be legitimately funny. Like, when it's stuff regarding puberty, it's like, yeah, that's kind of funny what you did there. Like this one joke involving Nick where he finds out that girls can get horny too, and his head explodes. It's like, okay, that was legitimately funny. And they do it with like a few of the other boys. It's like, yeah, that's pretty funny how you went with that joke. I like that. But other times they decide to remember, hey, we're an adult comedy show, so we need this crazy surreal humor that a lot of people find very offensive for no reason. And it's very jarring when they have real sincere moments talking about puberty. It's like, dude, like, why are you having these crazy moments? Like, for some reason, they have this idea of Duke Ellington's ghost is in the show. I'm like, why the fuck is that there? Why is that a thing? There's no reason for that. Or they'll have weird, crazy ideas like in certain episodes where a kid is fucking a pillow and he impregnates the pillow. I'm like, I get it. Some kids, in terms of going through puberty, will do some weird shit, but fucking a pillow? What? And it got really stupid because you don't know whether or not it's imaginary. It feels like it's a genuine plot point. It feels like, yes, this is a real thing that happened. He impregnated a pillow somehow. But it turned out the pillow was actually pregnant with his brother's kid. But either way, it's the fact that a fucking pillow is talking. I mean, come on. It just kind of hurts itself when it decides to be this crazy, weird, wacky show and try to be this sincere thing. You know, Family Guy tries to do this and it fails a lot. So it's like, why don't you go the other route and decide, hey, we're going to be more sincere? You know, BoJack Horseman has a lot of sincere moments. Yes, it has some craziness to it, but it's not so crazy, you know? And it's sort of in its own type of world. Here, this is clearly supposed to be taking place in like a certain realm of reality that we live in, but it clearly doesn't because the idea of ghosts, so it's like, you have some major inconsistencies here. It'd be fine if they were deciding to go the full route of extremes like Brickleberry and just be a downright stupid show with crazy surreal humor, but they need to choose. It's like either you're gonna be the extreme show or you're gonna be the sincere show with some good comedy to it, talking about real issues a lot of people went through. I feel like this crazy humor, it just doesn't fit along well with the things that they're trying to get across. If they made it a bit more subtle and a bit tamer, not that it needs to be so tame that it's for kids or anything, this still is an adult cartoon. It just could stand to have some subtlety to its craziness, you know? That's just it. The surreal humor just feels too jarring when they're having real moments. That's just my big problem here.
I'm late.
Late? You're a pillow. You have nowhere to go.
No, Jay. I'm pregnant.
What? makeup? Nice. I mean, how would that even be possible?
Come on, don't be naive, Jay. I told you to use protection.
What? No, I thought you meant from stains. I'm not ready to have a baby.
Well, you better get ready.
Oh, man. Oh.
The character designs are pretty ugly. I cannot fake. A lot of these characters look pretty ugly, but I guess that's sort of the point, is that as a preteen, yeah, you feel you're very ugly. You don't really look that good. I guess that's sort of where they're going with that, but it sort of presents a bit of a problem for the audience, like especially for the main character who's there to emulate Nick Kroll, which is really just a very bad design choice because, come on, look at him. That is clearly not someone you want to be emulating. It's really just kind of very weird, you know? You just find yourself like, oh, I really don't want to keep looking at that. But the animation is nice enough that you're not too grossed out by the faces. That's at least the one way they compensate, is by making the animation very nice and just serviceable for what they're trying to do here. It can just be a bit of a workout to try to look at the characters. You eventually get used to them. As you watch, you will find yourself like ignoring the designs and just kind of rolling with it and just saying, that's just what they look like. I can live with that. That's sort of the thing about it. That's at least one good thing I could say, is you get by.
That was positively painful, my pretty little papoose.
I know.
This series is honestly very hit or miss. Some of the stuff works, but some of the stuff doesn't. The crude humor is the main thing that can be a very deterring factor. It's just unnecessarily crude just for the sake of being crude, and I don't get it neither. Like showing off dicks, showing off fucking vaginas. Keep in mind they're preteens, so it has problems, definitely. But I don't want to toss the whole thing because some of it actually can be pretty good, like the stuff when it comes to just talking about puberty and figuring yourself out. It's like, yeah, a lot of us really do know that problem. Everybody can really relate to that problem, but they just go about it in such a weird way. It's mainly that they keep over-exaggerating the problems of puberty. That's where you start getting a little like, okay. I mean, I like a bit of over-exaggeration here and there, but they go a little too far with it. That's just where it's like, you gotta find the perfect balance. I can't say it's outright bad like Neo Yokio like I thought it was going to be, because Neo Yokio it hurt me. But this one, on the other hand, it was a bit of a surprise. Not that pleasant of a surprise, just something I'm like, I can see some substance to this. And it's nowhere near as bad as, say, Legends of Chamberlain Heights, where it's like, yeah, we're just being offensive for the sake of being offensive. We really have nothing to say here. We're just being stupid for the sake of being stupid. These are problems you can relate to with these characters. These are things you can find yourself saying, hey, I went through that before. I know that struggle. That's definitely something I can easily understand what they're going through. It just feels like the show is just a little bit misguided. They just kind of gotta find some proper focus. That's all it really needs. But that's just a thought.
Free.